Election Day is November 5th, and we're sitting down with Norwalk's candidates for Common Council and Board of Education, and we're asking them for their qualifications, their opinions, and their visions for Norwalk. Tell us, in the short time that you've been a part of the council, since January, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of run down for us, what do you think you've helped accomplish? What do you think you've accomplished since you've come onto the council?
I think that most of my work has been done, but I feel good about my work being done is on the committees. And I serve on 4 committees. That would be ordinance, personnel, health, welfare, public safety, and land use. And where I feel that I've made the biggest contribution is probably ordinance, and that would be passing the blight ordinance. And we're working on a chicken ordinance right now, a fowl ordinance, I should say. Because when you're new on a council, it takes a while to get used to it and the way things work. At least my perception is you have to do an awful lot of listening. You can't just go in there and expect to change things right away. For the first 6 months, it's a big learning curve. At least I think there is.
Sure.
And you work with your colleagues and you listen, and they help guide you through the whole process. It's a big undertaking, and I think you can't contribute a whole lot your first 6 months because you have to learn how the process works. And so you participate, but you spend a lot more time listening and learning. That's my perception, at least. You know, you want to go in with both guns blazing, and I can remember when I first was appointed to ordinance, my first question to the ordinance committee was, well, I'd like to tackle commercial blight. And it was like, well, settle down, Sarah. Right now we're working on residential blight. Okay, fine. You know, I'm the new kid on the block.
Right.
But so I just had to rein my enthusiasm in a little bit. That's the way that I'm learning. So that's the way that I see it.
Sure. So in the 8 months that you've had to sort of, get a grip on things and how the process works, what have you learned, and what's made you want to come back for another 2 years?
What I've learned is that there's a process for everything. And I like that process. I like the order. And I enjoy moving things forward. I've enjoyed working on the ordinance committee and moving the blight ordinance forward. I like the public hearing part of it and listening to what the residents have to say. I like that give and take. And the residents, when we had the public hearing for the blight ordinance, we listened to what the residents had to say and we incorporated some of their input into that ordinance. That's what I enjoy about it. And that's why I want to come back. I want to do more of that. Land use, we've also had a public hearing for land use. It was a small hearing. It was only about giving this one street back to a developer, actually, because we decided not to use it. And that was nice. It was a nice input. It was just nice to hear what the resident had to say about that. And it's just, I like that. I like the give and take. It's fun to hear what the residents have to say.
Sure. So should you be elected to your first real full term, kind of give me some ideas, where do you think the city's priorities need to be moving forward?
Well, education, BOE, I think is very important. I think we need to fund the BOE, but I also think we need to. I think we have a gap between our minority students and the white students. Even though the minority students have come up with their studies and their testing, there's still a significant gap. I believe that can be addressed if we offer an ESL classes to the parents that could address their lack of English speaking, which I think is huge. Because if the parents don't speak English, then they can't effectively communicate with the personnel in the school. That's a huge problem because then the tail's wagging the dog. The kids are running the show, and that's not a good thing. And the students need the reinforcement at home for what's going on at school. And if mom and dad can speak English and help the students with their homework and communicate effectively with the school personnel, then it's a win-win for everyone. And I think that then the achievement gap could be reduced.
Outside of education, where else would you like to see the council and the city prioritize?
The Norwalk Harbor Loop Trail, I think it's a wonderful project. Dave McCarthy, Councilman McCarthy, spearheaded this program, and it has now been moved over from DPW over to redevelopment, and we have allocated some funds for it too, and we should see this completed. We need to negotiate with a couple more property owners, and ideally we would get this completed in a couple of years. It's been on the books since, I believe, the 70s. Now it's time to get it moving. It's a wonderful project. We've underutilized the riverfront in Norwalk. It's time to move it forward. I think that we also need to, again, with the blight ordinance, we need to attack the commercial properties. Not attack them, wrong word, excuse me. But we need to address that. I think that the gateways are not as nice as they should be, particularly at exit 14, where next to Swanky Frank's, and then further down Connecticut Avenue where the old Valerie property was.
Right.
Very unsightly. And there are some other properties on Westport Avenue that I would like to see cleaned up. But hopefully we can live to fight that one another day.
Sure. The relationship between the Common Council and the mayor. What do you think that relationship should be? And should be like?
I think it should be as amicable as possible. I don't think that it should be adversarial. I think if you want things to move forward, there shouldn't be a push me, pull you type thing. It should be everyone working together. I mean everyone, both sides of the aisle. I don't think that we saw a lot of that this year. It was so partisan sometimes, and it was, sometimes I got the feeling that it was only because, well, we're Democrats and we're Republicans and that's just the way it has to be. And even though something was good for the city and it was going to save money, I got the feeling that sometimes people weren't going to vote for it just because it was the mayor's idea or the Republicans, it was their idea. And that was very frustrating to me, and it wasn't helpful to the city, and I don't think the residents liked it. Because we need to work together. It's good for the city to move forward. If they came up with an alternative plan, the other side, I should say, then hey, come to us, we'll talk to you, we'll work with you. But to just sit there and say no, that doesn't do anyone any good, and it doesn't serve the residents. And I think that people saw through them. I think that the citizens saw through that partisanship, and it didn't serve the city well at all. Not at all. But I think that no matter who's mayor, we should all do everything we can in our power to get along and to make sure we do what's best for the city. I mean, that's why we're there. We're there to work for the citizens and the residents, not to have hissy fits.